Hello again, Mark Anthony Taylor here. It's been a while since my last videos, but I've been doing some real life stuff, including chasing my litigation for gold and silver and platinum manipulation. There's lots of new news on the subject has emerged in the past few weeks, and I am now ready to let slip the dogs of war against Deutsche Bank and its cartel friends. But first I'm going to speak about cryptocurrencies. A few years ago I was into them, and I had two victories. I bought Bitcoin at 44, and I think I sold about at around 600. And then later on I bought Darkcoin when the market cap was about 8 million, and then the market cap went to 40 million. And I was chuffed because I'd increased my investment 5-fold. But the rent came in and I had to sell. And when I sold, Darkcoin suffered a crash. And so I was very smug. But looking at the prices now, the market cap is $1 billion or so. And it's renamed Dash. Well, I can't feel quite as smug, but I did have to pay for the rent back then. So with all of these things, the unexpected might happen, and you might have to cash out. Anyway, Bitcoin, my feeling, and this is going to anger a lot of people, I think Ethereum is going to eclipse Bitcoin within a week or so. I made a prediction about that last week and I got it wrong, but today it went up, so just to check, 17.65% as I speak. It's about 9:45 on the 10th of June at the moment. By the time you watch this video, I think things will be very different. I think Ethereum will have gone up even more, or had a short-term flash crash. But I think its market cap is soon to exceed Bitcoin, and when that happens, I think people will start to panic sell Bitcoin to get into Ethereum. I think it's already happened. Bitcoin's growth has slowed down. It's gone from 5% a day to about 2%. It's been wavering around the 2,800 mark for a couple of days. So I think people are going to panic sell it. And so I think Bitcoin might crash badly as Ethereum takes the #1 slot. Now, Bitcoin's tech is actually the oldest of everything. It hasn't been massively pre-mined, which is one advantage compared to other coins, but in almost all other comparisons against all other coins, it's amongst the weakest in terms of tech because it's the oldest that everything forked against. And after using it, it's just too slow for me. The last time I used it, it took a day. I set a trade going, and I came back the next day, and that's just too slow for the real world. So I think people will panic sell into Ethereum, and I think the price will badly crash. And then when people see that it's on its way out, what's the point in keeping your money in it? Its only other advantage at the moment is that you can use it to transfer money between exchanges, but I prefer to do that with Ethereum where possible. So it's only going to have legacy value, and that legacy is fast disappearing. So I think we could see Bitcoin fall down those charts very quickly. So that's my prediction. And I'm not a trained financial advisor. If you want a trained financial advisor, go talk to any of the insolvent market rigging banks, and then you'll find plenty of them. Ripple, I think, as most people know, is it's very bankster friendly. They can just print whatever the banksters need, which is not good. I mean, the banksters can basically pay off the Ripple board to issue as many coins as the banksters need. And so even if a trillion entered the Ripple market, if the number of coins circulating was 1 trillion, then that means anyone who's invested in it right now wouldn't really profit from it. So I can't recommend that. NEM I quite like, which is now in position 4. Its volume is slowly increasing. It was about 10 million a couple of weeks ago. Now it's 20 million, so it's doubling. And NEM gets better the more people use it. You do a bit of research on it and you'll figure out why. And NEM's tech seems to be possibly superior to Ethereum. And if, say, 4 billion was to enter the NEM market, then the prices would triple. So anyone with investment in it would see 300% returns very quickly. 3 billion in Ethereum is just 10% at the moment. Litecoin, again, it's a legacy coin. I suppose it's quite fast with its segregated witness, but I don't personally recommend it. But I won't completely knock it. Dash, I can't be bothered with, to be honest. It seems like it's quite vulnerable to different things. That's just my personal view. Monero, I don't know much about. The Stratus now is it's a C# rewrite of Bitcoin, and I don't think that really gives it much value. I mean, I used to be expert at C# back in the day, C# 2.0, and I'm still an expert in C++, being a seasoned games developer in C++, and I can tell you that C# is faster development for some things, but it's slower in others. And I think for a crypto coin, it will actually offer no real advantage over C++, which is a shame. Waves seems quite impressive tech. Now, I've got some investment in Waves. I think anything with its own original code base, which prohibits other people from forking while being open source, is quite a selling point. It's a disadvantage to be both open source and everyone having the rights to just modify your source code. Obviously, with any business, you don't want competitors to just copy and paste your business. Consider that Microsoft managed to really damage Java in the early days by copying and pasting and creating its own version called J++. I think the same is true of crypto coins. So any crypto coin with its own original source code, to me, has serious value. Now, I won't name names, but some of these new coins use the arbitrary data you can put in a blockchain and they try and find novel ways to commercialize that, such as using blockchain to transmit files or to timestamp data. But bear in mind, if you want to, say, copyright a document, you can just email it yourself through Google, and Google will timestamp it and digitally sign it, and then you can just take the plain text version of that, stick it on your website as a proof of timestamp, and you can use that in a court of law to establish copyright. And if you email yourself and have several different email accounts, Hotmail and Yahoo and maybe some Icelandic email service that are off limits for American bankster-owned or Podesta influenced businesses, then in any court of law, anyone who's going to try and fake your or take over your copyright is going to have a real struggle. And if you want to transmit files securely, well, there's FTP for that, secure FTP. If you've got a lot of clients, you can just stick your file behind a secure web browser. If you've got a lot of people want to edit your file, then you use GitHub or just Git in general. So there's no real need to put this stuff on a blockchain. If I want to send a file to someone, I really don't want to stick it on a blockchain. You know how slow these things are and they cost money, so what's the point? So I don't recommend any coin that uses blockchain superfluously. So be very careful about investing in anything with the latest fashion of the day stuck in that blockchain. I don't like anonymous coins. The reason is I've been a gold trader, and basically my gold was stolen through the process of manipulation. And in order to prove to a court that I bought and sold gold bullion and silver from Deutsche Bank, I have to show a paper trail. Now with an anonymous coin, the whole point is to hide that paper trail. So if you buy and sell something and the dealer at the other end denies receiving the coin, to my mind that just makes the job more difficult in getting your money back. If you want to trade with someone, then you need the power to prove what you've traded, and you need to be able to litigate against them if they don't deliver. And if you don't have those powers, then you're risking your money. So I recommend transparent coins, and I think the government is going to crack down a lot on these obfuscating technologies because of the serious money laundering issues. If you haven't read the news, all of the big European banks have been involved with a Russian to London money laundering cartel scheme of the order of £65 billion or something. That includes Deutsche Bank, HSBC, UBS, RBS, and Barclays. So, and the illegal activities have been uncovered by numerous investigative and judicial agencies around Europe. So you can figure that Russian to London money laundering basically means Russian oligarchs, in other words the former Russian mafia. Everyone knows the bloody mafia. They call them the oligarchs, who are basically the winners who managed to kill all of the little mafioso and consolidate the money and launder it in big industry. And all that money seems to be shifting into London, and the banks are forming a cartel, have formed a cartel, and they've shifted that money. So money laundering is a serious problem, and these crypto coins, these obfuscated crypto coins, they might be in the line of sight, and possibly rightly so. Some people will say, well, we need a coin so that we can buy drugs that the government bans and whatever, but perhaps a better solution is to fight your own government, for your freedoms, rather than fight for a coin so that you can circumvent the prohibitions of government. Fighting government usually means that your base gets raided, your stuff gets confiscated, and if you're unlucky, you either go to prison or you die. So I recommend fighting governments rather than trying to get around them. But I do have a little invested in Cloak Coin. I think it's a competitor to Monero, and it's about 1/40th the size of Monero. So there's much greater growth potential. And if you look at the graphs, it's been asymptotic, as with many cryptos. So I think there could well be a future for it, and if there isn't, well, it's just dabbled with pocket change. Now the next bit of this video concerns the banks again. I've mentioned the money laundering. Students or traders of precious metals will probably know that in Chicago recently, a trader confessed to having spoofed trades. He used high-frequency trading systems to rapidly put on trading requests that he then removed very quickly. So I guess he has a little computer program. He picks the precious metal, just clicks on silver, clicks the price, and the program sends to the high-frequency trading server a few packets of information: buy, followed by sell, and these packets are basically data blobs in the communications line that are sequential, the next to each other. So that means when the trading system sees these packets, it's basically processing these packets in order of packet, and instead of having a little pause after it sees these buys and then say handling someone else's request, it immediately goes on to the next packet. So in other words, it buys and sells in the same few clock ticks of the CPU. And anyone building a high-frequency trading system would know that this is entirely possible, and it's easy to circumvent it. All you do is put a little delay in, so whenever someone buys that they can't sell until everyone else has been handled, or a few seconds go by. Easy thing to code in, and the fact that it hasn't been coded in tells us that the high-frequency trading systems on the COMEX and the similar systems are basically just rigged. They are rigged to enable spoofing attacks, and indeed this man claims that all of the banks in a cartel have been spoofing he knows of hundreds of instances. So there's no way that this stuff gets past audits. Hundreds of spoofing attempts. So in their own trading logs, unless they don't even have bloody logs, which is a money laundering violation. You've got to keep logs in banks. That's basic 101 for years. So this stuff has got to be going on in a log, so anyone who's doing an audit of the bank basically checks logs for spoof trades, rapid buys followed by sells, or sells followed by buys. So the fact that there can be hundreds of these things and it not get reported tells us that no proper auditing was undertaken. So if Deutsche Bank are saying that they are auditing themselves and then nothing emerges, that tells you that their audits are fake, which tells you that the bosses bloody well know that trades are being spoofed. Now this trader who was arrested or confessed, pleaded guilty, got immunity. He said he'd learnt from the Grand Master. Well, the Grand Master, I presume, would be in charge of these audits. And who were the three Grand Masters of Deutsche? Well, who were the two at the time it was trading gold and silver bullion over the counter? Are Jürgen Fitschen and Anshu Jain. And these two people would be the two people responsible for the audits. And they were challenged by me to produce evidence of their audits. Anshu Jain issued a strikeout application or hearing against me on the basis of my allegations that the bank had been manipulating gold and silver markets. He said that was vexatious, so he issued a strikeout application, had an oral hearing, and he refused to turn up for that oral hearing when I said I was going to cross-examine him, and his lawyer refused to turn up, Slatter. And in a notice to admit facts, which is a legal document sent to Deutsche Bank and Anshu Jain, they issued a reply by paper and a notice to admit facts. When you write a reply to such a document, effectively it's under oath. And Emma Slatter of Deutsche Bank said the audits were genuine. Well, we now know with this spoofing that there's no bloody way those audits could be genuine. She was general counsel of Deutsche Bank. I got an email from her, an internal email that they accidentally leaked to me. It's just an insult. It was an insulting email to me, so I think they accidentally leaked it to insult me. But then they realised it showed that she knew, and she had enough power at Deutsche Bank to get those audits, to have a look through them. So she knew that there was no audit. And I'd given her documents that showed that Deutsche Bank's audits were fake, that they were claiming in Reuters to have these audits, but they'd sent private correspondence to me, and they said it was case closed. Well, if it was case closed, then they'd have looked through this spoofing logs and seen the spoof trades, and then lied about it. So the people sending the letters to me saying there's no evidence, they had to be either lying through the teeth, or they were told to write that letter by people lying through the teeth. So these spoofing trades plus my evidence gives a paper trail from the executives on the board responsible for commissioning the audit to the people on the ground writing that letter. And if you follow that paper trail and you're any kind of investigator, then you can identify which members of the board conspired with the traders to rig the prices of precious metals. And you could identify who the Grand Master is who's teaching these spoofing techniques. Because obviously he's not just teaching techniques, he's providing them with algorithms. Now the reports I've seen say this man put in these trades and then he cancelled them. It wasn't clear that the cancellation was algorithmic, but if you're using a high frequency trading system in which computers at the other end, once they see the change in the price, automatically apply their own algorithms to buy and sell, and they're literally responding within a few hundred nanoseconds, there's no way you're going to be able to type a cancellation in a few hundred nanoseconds. Milliseconds is too much. Even a second is too much, you know. So this stuff has to be algorithmic, and so the Grand Master who's teaching these techniques is supplying the algorithms. So this has to be Anshu Jain. That's why he refused to turn up for his own hearing. That's why his lawyer wouldn't even defend him in his own hearing. Now also, they were laundering money from Russia to London. I'd accused them of destroying receipts because they'd played games with me. They wouldn't supply my receipts. They wouldn't confirm what receipts I had were genuine. So I accused them of money laundering violations, which they never denied. They were accused by the FCA of destroying materials to cover up money laundering. Now, recently I was reminded of something that I'd forgotten. The government, if I get the pronunciation right, Qatar, never been there, I've not studied its history or its geography, so I hope I get the pronunciation right. But Qatar apparently owns a large amount of Deutsche Bank, and Qatar has been incriminated for funding ISIS. And I've been accusing Deutsche Bank of destroying its bullion receipts and potentially laundering bullion to ISIS. So when I put these jigsaw pieces together, it's quite obvious that Qatar, if they're willingly supplying bullion to ISIS, are going to do it through Deutsche Bank. That will just destroy its receipts to cover that up. Total violation of money laundering laws. Helps it get away with liabilities for its over-the-counter bullion trade. So all those poor German souls who are forced to sell bullion, who then go to the authorities having lost their receipts, the authorities will say, well, we haven't got any receipts for Deutsche Bank, and we don't think Deutsche Bank have got them. So you can't prove that you bought or sold anything, so you're getting nothing. So it's outright criminality from Deutsche Bank. And I can tell you that BAF and the FCA, the SFO, and probably the Department of Justice in the US, they all know that Deutsche Bank have destroyed its receipts. And they all know why, because Deutsche Bank are funding ISIS, and the West, totally perversely, have sided with the Sunni Wahhabists. It's the Sunni faction who are blowing up bombs in Europe and driving over people and knifing them. They're all Sunnis, none of them are Shia. 95% of the Muslims in the UK are Sunni, and the Shia have been complaining that they're just getting outrightly discriminated against by the Sunni faction. You won't see Sadiq Khan admit to that. So when you see all these Muslims on television threatening people behaving like yobs, or saying we need diversity, they don't mean diversity for the Shia. They mean diversity as a code word for Sunni supremacism, that they're basically taking the Sunni Shia war, which the Shia, 90% of the Iranians are Shia, and I think just over half of the Syrians, and the Shia are basically the most tolerant, developed, westernised, moderate people, and the Sunni are the ones that look backwards. You know, they covered head to toe in shawls and declaring war on everyone. So they're taking this Sunni Shia conflict, and as we've seen in Syria, the Sunni Wahhabist ISIS do not stop with the Shia. That they kill the Christians and the atheists, anyone who doesn't fit their narrow definition of religious perfection. And women, are, whether they're 9 years old, are raped and then murdered. So it's a thuggy cult, and it's what we're funding, what we're supporting and training. And they're using Deutsche Bank to supply these people with bullion that they've stolen from us. So when May says we need to censor the internet and turn the entire internet to BBC Online with its fake diversity, every Hindu you see on the BBC is a Brahmin caste. If you don't know what Brahmin is, look it up. Brahmin. There's no caste diversity amongst the Brahmins, amongst the Hindus of the BBC. If you look at the executive, they've all got double barrel names. They're all white supremacists. They're all pro-EU. I mean, the EU is a white supremacist organisation full of people who believe in their own supremacy, and they're largely all white. And the UK section have double barrel names. You don't see May warn against white supremacists from the EU. She talks about neo-Nazism. Well, I lived in Germany for about 5 years, and I saw about 2 neo-Nazis in 5 years. They just happened to be shopping in Lidl. They looked like a pair of idiots. And in the UK, I don't think actually anyone's ever seen a Nazi for about 20 years. So then she says, extremism, we must stop extremism on the internet. And we can only deduce that extremism is anything that opposes the government narrative. Anything that has the word conspiracy in it. So that's my conclusion. Anshu Jain is the Grand Master Manipulator. I'm going to challenge him again this July. My restraining order, which HSBC put against me, is set to run out in July, and that restraining order claimed that allegations of gold rigging were totally without merit, and HSBC are incriminated by Deutsche Bank and are incriminated in this money laundering fraud. So we've got them by the balls, and we're going for the jugular. Never bite someone's balls, take my advice. And this thing is a can of worms for the elite. We've linked crypto coins, bullion, and ISIS. And I think very soon we'll have the full details of the paedophile scandal, which links into everything else. Consider that Epstein's black buck had as 2 contacts, if that's all they were, the Rothschilds and the Saudi royal families, and the Rothschilds pretty much own HSBC. that dates back from the Opium Wars. You look that up. Sassoons. Sassoons are probably the hidden hand of the hidden hand. The Sassoon opium traders. What was that? About 70 years. 70 years running an opium cartel that had between 30 and 100 million drug addicts chipping in every year. Compound interest over a century and a half, and that must be in the trillions now. So the Sassoons are the hidden hand of the hidden hand. They integrated with the Rothschilds, who are in Epstein's black book, along with the Saudis. Podesta's linking to Google. So this thing is gonna, this Podesta thing is gonna blow up, and is gonna expose all of the links into the banking system, which is run by paedophiles. Keynesianism is the paedophile banking methodology. Look it up. Keynes was I think it was. Am I right? Keynes was a classic sleazeball paedophile, Oxbridge paedophile sleazeball. So he founded the paedophile school of economics. All of these banks subscribe to the paedophile school of economics, and they've got as their ruling oligopolists, a load of Epstein mates. And I don't know anyone who's got a name in Epstein's black book who's explained himself. Maybe Epstein just phoned them up and asked them how they were doing or whatever, and no one said, well, he just phoned me up, asked me how I'm doing, and he put the phone down. And there's a lot of big names in that. You should look that up if you haven't already. You'll be shocked if you haven't. And I think I'm out of ideas at the moment, so I will say goodbye and thank you.